an additional $400,000 for our microwave project, extremely important, and we thank both our U.S. senators and Congressman Thompson for that, for their work on that. That $400,000 will allow that we move forward with phase 2 in our sort of completion of a very, very important public safety connectivity and communications tool. Also in the earmark process were 2 allocations in the Energy and Water Division for the Army Corps of Engineers, $110,000 for the Coyote Dam feasibility study that is an ongoing issue of concern for water availability in the county. So that received that amount, which also requires a local match to move forward. Also, I think it was $350,000, $300,000 plus for the ongoing project of trying to secure a dredge materials management plan for the maintenance of Noyo Harbor. This is a project, it's a multi-million-dollar project that ultimately, if we can secure the adequate funding, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers will take over the dredge responsibilities, and no longer will the county and the Harbor District and the city of Fort Bragg need to be concerned with constantly looking for congressional ads to keep this very important infrastructure project alive. So those were 3 pluses that were achieved when we were there for our last year's request. We also brought forward, I believe it was 8 specific projects. We talked about biomass at the Department of Energy. We met with staff and we met with our elected officials on our other projects that include, again, more funding for the 2 Army Corps projects, because those are multi-year projects, transportation project, a project for the digital bookmobile for the library. We had a number of the infrastructure project in terms of getting money for rehab and continued ADA compliance for our veterans buildings, of which there are 6 in Mendocino County. So we really were able to push a number of these projects and hopefully educate them. They all received binders on what the specifics of these projects are, letting them know that if they need additional information on any of them, we would be happy to provide it. We'll continue to have follow-up communication with them. We'll correspond with the individuals we met with. There was, I guess, the guarded optimism in D.C. that with new monies being directed to infrastructure, that some of the areas of neglect over the past 8 years would start to turn around. So I think the infrastructure spending hopefully can be something that benefits Mendocino County. We're going to need to be very vigilant. There are going to be obviously lots of requests from lots of jurisdictions. So we're going to need to follow up, and we're going to need to see what other opportunities we have with the stimulus dollars to hopefully get projects here on the ground in Mendocino County. So I think overall it was a very fruitful trip. It's always a very time intensive when you're there. You're going from meeting to meeting, but I think it was productive. I had the opportunity to sit on a number of discussions that Sonoma County Water Agency was having with some of our similar partners in terms of them trying to advance the Pacific salmon restoration dollars, of which there's a request for $90 million that we've had support from our delegation in the past, and I think we will in the future. And that concludes my report.
Supervisor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't go into the agenda. I just want to report that I did attend a CSAC new supervisors 2-day workshop in Sacramento. Also want to announce that I have received an invitation to an initial meeting on the tribal proposal dealing with the Potter Valley project, and I will report back as that goes along, and when it's appropriate, I'd like to put on the agenda presentation on that particular proposal. Also, we've had to cancel the Russian River watershed tour for NOAA Fisheries and Fish and Game, and it'll be reset probably sometime in April due to the rain and high water flows at the moment.
Okay. With that, we're going to move into appointments of boards and commissions. We have the list. Can we take a motion? Supervisor Brown?
Yes, I would like to appoint Lorelei Mannix to be the consumer family representative from the 1st District to the Mental Health Board.
We have a
Second.
Motion and a second by Supervisor Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimous. I think that concludes the list. Okay, with that, we have a request here from, can we just take about a 3-minute break, and then sorry to keep the department heads and everybody waiting, but we're only an hour behind time. That's not bad. So, and we will come back, and what we're trying to do is to conclude this by 12:30. If we don't conclude it by 12:30, we will carry it over till our next meeting, but we'll try to move through this. A lot of the things were talked about last week. I don't think we need to go over and plow old ground. We'll try to, we're looking forward some proposals as we're trying to close this roughly $1 million budget gap in this fiscal year. So see you back here at 13 after 11. Okay, we're back in session. Assistant CEO Allison Glassy. Allison, you'll briefly start us off on this agenda item 5E, board's budget session. This is actually continued from February 24th.
Correct, and I will do this briefly. When last we met, we were kind of setting the stage for what the shortfall is as currently calculated for the 2008-2009 budget year, which is the current fiscal year that we're in. And what went into figuring out what the shortfall is, or the current calculation is, had to do with the mid-year update information that you got. It had to do with reporting out on the implementation of mandatory time off as a result of agreements with most of the bargaining units, and what that was going to contribute towards the shortfall. And then it came down to, there are a number of departments, as reflected in the mid-year update, that are over budget, and you as a board indicated that you wanted to talk with each of those departments and address their overage and their plans for dealing with that overage. And you kind of wanted to deal with that up front, so that then we could look at, okay, after you deal with that department by department, where the overages are, what's left then is what we collectively have to address. And having done the meet and confer around mandatory time off, having done whatever can happen with individual departments, then we're looking at collective actions that could end up being personnel reductions in some fashion in the county. So that's where we left off, and you had specific departments that you wanted to come back and address you. And they are the Sheriff's Office, the Planning and Building Department, the Health and Human Services Agency, the Auditor's Office, and the Grand Jury, those being the budget areas, departments that are projecting to be over budget. There was an additional request to also have the District Attorney and the Public Defender come back. I think due to time and due to the fact that both of those departments are within budget at this point, we are not going to have those presentations today, and we will focus in on the shortfall and the departments that can contribute specifically to that, reducing that shortfall. So we are also going to start with the departments other than the Sheriff's Office, because the Sheriff has a lengthier presentation, and the other departments are going to be relatively quick, some of whom you've already heard from. So in order, we will start off with the Health and Human Services Agency, because you've already heard from them, and it's a continuation of the discussions they've been having with you. And then we can go to the Auditor's Office, guess we'll do Planning and Building, and then the Grand Jury, and then the Sheriff's Office. So does that make sense? Okay, and then after the departmental presentations, the Executive Office is prepared to lay out a number of options for board action, and so that we can move towards